What's up, everybody? Welcome to my office hours for CyberArk Automation. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. I'm Joe Garcia, DevOps security engineer for CyberArk, and I've got a bunch of guests that I'll be getting to introduce here in a little bit. But for the next 2 hours, we're going to hang out. We're going to talk a little bit about CyberArk Impact. That's coming up July 12th, 13th, and 14th. That's going to be available in person for the first time in quite a few years out of Boston. Also available virtually if you want to attend that way and don't want to come in person or can't get the flight. Flights are ridiculously crazy. We'll talk to our guests today a little bit about that. We'll also take a look and have a little bit of a conversation around dynamic privileged access, a newer product in the CyberArk suite of identity security. And we'll figure out how that works, what benefits we can get from that. And then closer to the second hour, we'll start to get to your questions. So we are live right now on both Twitch, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Use the chats, put in your questions. We'll be getting to those closer in the second hour. You can wait until then when we make our move over there if you'd like. I do expect to have 3 guests today. I do have 2 waiting in the green room as we speak. So my first guest that I'd like to bring on and introduce to everyone is a solutions architect for our Northeast region of the Americas. You might remember him from our last office hours. His name is Joe Strickland. Let me bring Joe on into the stream here. What's up, Joe? How you doing today?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me again. Super pumped to be here.
Awesome.
Last time was awesome. So just looking forward to answering some good questions.
Great. Yeah, it looks like you did a little bit of decoration too in your background. You've got some nice plants.
Just for the stream.
Just for the stream?
Yeah.
Well, good. Hopefully they're getting enough sunlight and they'll last longer than the stream. All right. And my second guest is also a solutions architect. He is covering the Southeast region, but he is going to be our dynamic privileged access expert for the day. He'll be able to answer all of your questions regarding that. And his name is Mike Bykat. What's up, Mike? How are you doing today?
What's up, Joe and Joe? How's it going, guys?
Yeah, not confusing at all, right?
J and J. Yeah, we good. Thanks for having me. My first time, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I totally decided I was going to fix my hair before the stream, and then I decided, you know what? I'm just going to roll with it, and we're going to go without styling it today, and be comfortable about things.
Looks great.
So I see that Joe brought his obligatory CyberArk shirt with him today. He's got the Fearlessly Forward shirt. Where did you pick that one up at? Did you go to an event and get that, or did they mail it to you?
Yeah, I got it at Gartner last week in the DC area. So the Gartner Security Conference. I was not at RSA getting COVID with everyone else. I was here in DC. Maybe still, I know some people still got COVID there as well, but thankfully not myself.
Yeah, I don't think there's any escaping that, to be honest with you, with everything. You know, the new strain is a little bit more easier to get, I think, anyways. But at least you're okay, and you were able to go to Gartner instead of RSA, which is weird that they would hold an event on a week that they know the RSA conference is happening. It's not like RSA just gets scheduled a couple beforehand.
Yeah, I'm sure it did take a lot away from the attendance, plus being in the DC area. I still felt it was relatively well attended in the sense of, there was probably 2,000, 2,500 people there, lots of booths.
Wow.
Lots of presentations.
Good attendance for like that.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it a regional thing, or was it their national conference just happened to be held?
I don't even know if it was regional or national. It was just Gartner Sec. I'd have to look it up. We had a fairly good booth, but I felt like obviously CyberArk had to split the team because we definitely sent a bunch of people out to Gartner as well.
Did you have a there at all, or did you just work the booth? You were a booth babe.
No, I did a presentation on the current threat landscape for critical infrastructure. So a stage presentation. It was good overall. If anyone on here attended that, I'd love some feedback. If not, I'll try to get it another way.
Is it available on YouTube or anything like that? Did they say?
I didn't see it. They did have a bunch of AV stuff, like from a recording point of view. Mine was mic'd up. I'll have to check with the marketing folks if they are going to make that stuff available. I don't know if I want to watch it though. It's always kind of cringy sometimes.
I never never watch mine either.
Yeah.
I'm out there. I just add them to the playlist that I have on YouTube, and that's it. Hit the pause button quick before it gets too deep.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Mike, what have you been up to? You go to any conferences yet, or you just I saw you on the list, so I got tapped to go to Black Hat this year. That's happening August. I think the expo hall is open the 9th and the 10th of August, or no, maybe the 10th and the 11th. I forget. But I saw you on the list, so I guess you got tapped for that too.
I did, but I actually got switched now to go to the Gartner conference. Coincidentally, that's a couple weeks after in Vegas, so they need to do a little rescheduling.
Yeah. Did you go to RSA, or were you just hanging out?
I had an opportunity, but I decided to pass. I was there when everything shut down in 2020 for COVID, so I decided to just have an additional break before I decided to experience the COVID RSA environment. Maybe next year. I did have a little FOMO, so I'll be back.
Yeah, it definitely looked like there was a lot of booths there. Whether there were a lot of people there or not, I couldn't tell, because all the pictures were of the booths, and the booths looked absolutely crazy. It's like everybody saved their marketing budget the past couple of years to just on RSA with it.
I've heard there were tons and tons of people, that it was a great turnout, and the demos were going crazy.
So actually, I got a private chat. We've got somebody in the green room right now that I'm going to introduce here in a second. I don't see his camera on, so I don't want to necessarily pull him on quite yet until he pops that on. But he did ask the question of what FOMO is. And I know I always ask, every time I hear it, I always ask my wife, like, what does it mean? And I finally remembered this time, but I'll let you kind of set up what FOMO is.
Yeah, fear of missing out. When you say no to something and then you see everyone having a good time, you're like, maybe I should have gone.
Yeah. Well, what you don't see is all of the arthritis and the back problems that come from standing at the booth for 8 hours a day.
Exactly, the sore feet.
When they first get there, you don't see the frowns afterwards when they're all tired. Their millionth demo of the day, and they're just exhausted and done.
Yep, so true. We did the AWS Summit was in Atlanta a month ago. It was a pretty good turnout for a smaller regional conference, but nothing like RSA.
Yeah, cool. Well, I know that we do have another guest. He's dealing with his own stuff in the green room. When he's ready to come on, I'll introduce him and bring him in. That doesn't mean that we need to stop the party or anything like that. We can definitely continue talking. I do want to touch on CyberArk Impact, which is coming up in July. It's going to be the 12th, 13th, and 14th, Tuesday through Thursday. And then there's also training, as usual, on that Monday too. So we're going to have a full day on Monday of training. Monday is also partner day. If there's any partners watching this right now, that will be your day, is that Monday of the week. And then the 12th through the 14th is Impact. And it's going to be a little bit different this year. It's going to be a little weird, I think, for some people who may have started a little bit sooner, or the newer customers, because I ran a poll on LinkedIn just to kind of gauge what people were going to do. Are you going to attend virtually and not come in person? Are you going to attend in person? Are you not going to come? Whatever. And it looks like a majority of people were going to attend virtually. So the in-person rate wasn't very high, but that's not to say that there won't be people there. I just don't think that. I remember back to 2019, that was the last in-person Impact that we did. And there were so many people there. The Discovery Center was packed. I think that was the year we ran out of food. There were so many people there. We ran out of food at a happy hour or something like that, where the Discovery Center was running, and then tried to order pizza. And then we couldn't get the pizza to come in because they wouldn't accept outside food. And so everybody ended up just going out to restaurants. It was a whole mess.
Does that mean you didn't run out of beer though?
So that actually, yeah, that happened too. It was food. It was the alcohol. The open bar was gone. So everybody just started.
That's a bigger problem.
And it was dinner time, by that point. And so everybody started just going out and doing everything else. And it got disjointed from there. But definitely not going to happen this year. We're not even going back to the Seaport this year. This year it's being held at the Heinz Conference Center, or Heinz something. I think it's the Heinz Conference Center, HYNES. It's definitely downtown Boston, like downtown. And it'll be fun. It'll be big. I looked at the floor plans just to kind of get an understanding of how it's set up. It is multi-floor. So it's 2 different floors. There's an expo hall on the very top floor. I imagine we'll have that top floor so that we have our keynotes up there and stuff. But it seems like a lot of the breakouts are going to happen on the second floor. So the 3rd floor is the very top where the expo hall is, and then there's a 2nd floor that has a bunch of like breakout rooms. It looks like that can be utilized for breakouts. So I feel like we're going to be going between floors in order to experience everything that there is. I couldn't really figure out where the Discovery Center might be. We are bringing back the Discovery Center. Are you guys on any Discovery Center duty this year?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I know I have Genius Bar, I think.
Wow, that's because you're so smart.
Yeah, you're on it too. So the Genius Bar is something new this year that we're doing at Impact in the Discovery Center, where I think you guys each have a topic that you're covering, and it's just going to be like a long bar. And then people are going to come up to you and ask questions, and you're going to give them answers, right? That seems pretty easy. It's kind of what we do here, only you're doing it live and in person.
Yeah, no cheating.
Yeah, I'm not actually going to be attending, unfortunately, which is super bummed out. But you guys will have a lot of fun. I think the people that do go are going to see some amazing stuff.
That's all right. I'm sure that we'll find someone to try and fill your shoes. And
I guess that's my FOMO, right? I'll be at home with myself, but you guys will have a great time.
We'll bring you in virtually, right? We'll live stream you into the Genius Bar, and
Perfect.
You can answer that way.
I just need one of those robots with the iPad on it with my face, and I'll just roll around.
Yeah, we'll see a robot rolling through the hall, going to the breakouts and stuff with your face on it. I think there was a Bob's Burgers episode where Tina was doing that at school or something, and then everybody or her crush or whatever fell in love. Jimmy Jr., right? Sorry, I love Bob's Burgers, so I had to go there.
When I watch it, I like it, but I haven't seen. I saw they're coming out with a movie.
Yeah, it came out like end of last month or something like that. It was rated pretty good on Rotten Tomatoes, but I haven't seen it, or I don't even think it's playing around a movie theater where I am, to be honest with you. But anyways, back to Impact. I will be doing the secrets management booth in the Discovery Center. So I'm not on the Genius Bar. That's going to be Darren Kahn. He's going to be covering what the DevOps folks will do at the Discovery Center's Genius Bar. I'll be on the secrets management booth. I did order a big head cutout of my face. So I've got this huge cardboard cutout of my face that's being shipped to me, and I'm going to plaster it up everywhere that I am in Impact. So if you can't find me, just look for the big logo cut out and plastered up on wherever I'm underneath. And so I'm going to do that. We're going to be I got a breakout session where I'm going to be talking about a new project that is coming out of CyberArk Labs regarding securing the supply chain. And so we're going to talk about what a supply chain is, how we can secure it today, what the future looks like with this project. And then at the secrets management booth in the Discovery Center, we'll be showing off that particular project. So definitely a nice follow-up to come to the Discovery Center to check out that product. Unfortunately, we're like one of the last talks of Thursday, so the Discovery Center is going to be over by the time my talk goes. So you're going to get a preview of what's going to be in my talk by coming to the Discovery Center booth for secrets management. But we're going to have a lot of booths from what I was saying. I got an early glimpse at the floor plan. There's going to be secure cloud access. IoT, OT is making an appearance this year. So that's going to be a big topic that's talked about. I know we've got a lot of great partnerships around that. And then, the normal stuff that we typically have. DPA will have its booth there. Hopefully we'll see some secure web session stuff. I've been playing around with that as part of my securing the supply chain stuff, and that is really cool how it can connect to websites and then record that. So yeah, we're gonna have a lot of stuff going on. 3 weeks of Impact. I mean, sorry, not 3 weeks. 3 days of Impact. 3 weeks, I would die.
I was like, whoa.
But I want to before we continue on, I want to bring in our final guest of today. He was with us on the last office hours. He is a senior security services engineer focusing on DevOps. He is the one who will deploy you into production if you happen to purchase our Conjure Secrets Manager. And that is Andrew Harris. What's up, Andrew?
Hey everybody, how's it going? Sorry I was running a little bit late.
Andrew, with a little relocation this stream. Last stream you had a nice background to you. This time we get to watch his cat play on the jungle gym in the background there. You got a little cat. And I like how you position the camera too, so that we can, if we get bored with your face, we can just watch your cat in the background there.
You know, it's weird when you do these things, like with your camera, it's like really hard to figure out how to orientate yourself behind you. Like you just get completely lost.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Yeah.
For people who just joined, we're talking about, we just got done talking about CyberArk Impact. We're going to talk a little bit about dynamic privileged access. So Mike is going to help us out with understanding what that looks like. Obviously, more information coming at CyberArk Impact on that. With your talk, I think you're doing a talk at Impact too, Mike, on dynamic privileged access.
You know it. Yeah, we're going to call it the completing the privileged puzzle with dynamic privileged access.
Ooh,
little teaser for you.
That'll be fun. I have had a chance to play with dynamic privileged access, so I definitely love it. I've been using it for, again, securing the supply chain. That's mainly been what I've been focused on recently, and it's perfect for that. We're going to be getting to everyone's questions closer to the second hour, probably a little bit before. So if you have any questions for this office hours, please put it in the chat and I will mark them, and then we will touch on them in order as we get to that point where we're going to start answering some of your questions. We've got myself and Andrew, who's great with Conjure Secrets Manager and deployments with that. I'm good with the API automation and dealing with integrating a bunch of services together. Mike with our dynamic privileged access manager, as well as PAM and everything else a solutions architect needs to know. And then Joe brings the SCIM. So if you have any identity governance happening in there, he's got great knowledge in our SCIM, as well as PAM and everything else the solutions architect needs to know there. Are any of you guys good at identity? I don't think I've had anybody identity related on yet that could really handle identity questions.
I would give myself a 4 to 5 out of 10. Good enough to do something dangerously. But
yeah,
if you want the right answer, we should probably bring in someone like
Jared.
Maybe Jared Brodsky on the next office hours. You know, someone that's in and day out, knows all the cool stuff that it can do, and might be able to answer some of those more unique questions. But I think Mike and myself probably pretty familiar with most of the features. Just some of the more technical questions. You know, I was on a call recently, and somebody asked a question that just went 4 miles above my head, and I said, wow, I'm really glad Jared's on this call because I have no idea what they just asked. So yeah, he would definitely be the right person, I think.
We can collect those questions and take them to Jared and get them answered offline then. So just give us all your questions. It doesn't matter if it's automation related or not. If you just want to know why your reconcile account is erroring, we'll try to help, but you know, the proper answer may also be open up a support ticket, right? Why are you paying for maintenance for a subscription if you're not going to use support? So that's also a valid answer you may get from us today. And as always, everything that we talk about here today is definitely hit or miss whether it's supported or not. We may go off on a tangent and talk about some things that CyberArk doesn't necessarily officially support. So don't take anything that we say during this office hours as being the gospel truth. So got to make that little disclaimer out there before we get started. But I do want to take some time to talk about dynamic privileged access, dynamic privileged access with you, Mike. Because I think that it's really cool. And so if you could just, for everybody who's listening, kind of set up what it is, you know, why somebody would want to use it, and maybe some common scenarios of how it's being used today. I think that'd be a good start. And then I'll basically just ask you a whole ton of questions from there.
Sounds good. I mean, I think it's super awesome, just like you said. It's a pretty simple use case that I think will stick out to a lot of our users, in the sense that there are users within your organization. We might call them operational type day-to-day users who just need to log in to servers, Linux in the cloud, Windows on-prem, to do some sort of administrative task, and then they're done for the day. They don't necessarily need to use the break glass vaulted managed credential, and DPA, dynamic privilege access, is going to provide that capability. So you just use your regular identity, whether it's your AD account, your single sign-on account, and you'll authenticate. You'll have MFA, and we'll make sure that you're authenticated and authorized, and log you into that target system without any requirement for vaulting onboarding accounts into PAM. Now, it doesn't replace PAM. You're still going to have those use cases, so we really say it's complementary, but it really simplifies some of that day-to-day access.
And so the dynamic privileged access, what's required for it to run, so it's for Windows and Linux. I know that much. And I don't really want to talk too much about the Windows stuff yet, because I obviously am DevOpsy and automation-y, and it's a little bit easier to do on the Linux side of the house. And what really spoke to me when I was checking this out is looking at the documentation as well, is that there's a connector involved here. So there's a bastion, kind of, right, that
Yep.
we're going through, similar to the PSM SSH proxy. So we're going to need to connect through something to get to the remote target, which tells me not only are we getting just-in-time access to the endpoint, but we're also isolating that session. We're applying recording, similar things that the PSM for SSH proxy, or PSMP as some people may know it, works out. Is that correct? It provides all of those same features and everything.
That's exactly right. You got it.
So one thing that I definitely have used in the past before this, I don't anymore, but it's out there, is was open sourced by Netflix, and it's called Bless. And the whole deal behind this project, you can find it out at GitHub. If I were to pull it up here, Netflix Bless. And so the whole idea here is that it provides a bastion for you to go through, and it's able to sign SSH keys with a certificate that's trusted on the endpoints in order to make a time to live based connection out there. And so this was something that I did, and actually got it working with Conjure Secrets Manager as the secrets manager that's dealing with a lot of this stuff. But I don't even need to worry about this anymore. That actually took me 2 days to configure and set up and run, with a bunch of Lambda functions running in AWS and things like that to get this working. Now I can just use dynamic privileged access and then deploy a connector into AWS, right? Like I run an AWS lab. I can deploy a connector there. And then I'm going to configure through a UI, imagine some sort of authentication. How is that authentication based? Is it like role based, IAM role based or something?
Yeah, that's great. So, I mean, first off, it took you a couple of days to configure that Netflix piece there. We're seeing with our customers, it's an hour deployment for a POC type of scenario, maybe even less if you have prerequisites ready to go. So we're using attribute-based access control, is what we're terming it there, right? Using the tagging capability in AWS or Azure to define what target system is in scope. So there will be a cloud formation template, if we're talking AWS, that you're going to run to allow read-only access into the environment. And
Okay.
then we utilize the tags applied to the target systems to determine what's in scope for a particular policy.
Cool. Yeah, it looks like it's got documentation for Azure as well, and then
Yeah.
on premises. So that's cool. And yeah, here's the custom tags for like Azure. So you would add the key values that are needed. So that's cool. It's tag based authentication controls then. And then
Yeah.
And
I
then
was just going to say that the benefit there, right, is you bake that tagging into your template. So whenever a new VM is coming up, it could just be within seconds. As long as that tag is applied to the template, you're going to be able to access via DPA without any additional customization.
I really like how they've included a video too at the top here. I think that this was the missing piece of the puzzle in our documentation the whole time, because I can sit here and I can read all of
A
this
lot.
documentation and go step by step. I want to treat our documentation like a run book, but if I want to understand the why we're doing things, right? Give me a video. I don't want to sit here and read a novel on why we're doing things. So I like how this is the first documentation I've actually seen this. And is there any more that you know that's doing this other than DPA?
I saw on EPM, on Endpoint Privilege Manager, there's videos for some end user flows and things like that, which I think is pretty cool. I haven't seen it baked into the kind of the administration examples until now. Yeah,
that's cool. So so then it's dealing with certificate signed SSH key, maybe even the STS service if you're talking in AWS. So on premise, it would be the certificate signed SSH key. AWS and Azure, it would deal with the roles in there, the identities in there. And then for the Windows side of the house, how does the Windows side of the house work out?
Yeah, so you mentioned on-prem for Linux is coming, so we're not there yet. On the Windows side, yep, we're using what we're phrasing as a strong account. So it needs to be a domain joined system. The strong account's going to be able to create and remove accounts on the fly on the target systems. So it's going to be a truly ephemeral account. So when Joe needs to log in to target Windows 1, you'll get a random unique ID that's created on the fly for that session, and it goes away after that session as well. So you can't log in. There's no standing access, which is really the big piece from this conversation is reducing that standing access that comes around.
That's cool. So I do have a surprise for you, and I didn't want to tell you leading up to here, but I do have DPA.
Ooh.
I do have a DPA tenant. The great BT actually owns the tenant, so I can't get into the UI to show you the administration and how it works. But what I do have access to is the ability here to connect. And so I can show everyone an example of what this looks like. I told Mike not to come prepared to showcase or demo anything. And we don't need to get too deep into it, I don't think. But here's the SSH connection that I'm making. So I'm Steve Wozniak in this Secure the Supply Chain demo, right? It's my thing. So I'm logging in as Steve Wozniak, which is in CyberArk Identity. So this is linked up with CyberArk Identity. And in CyberArk Identity, I am Steve Wozniak. And then I'm saying and I'm whoops, I don't want to do that. All right. And then I'm saying and I'm guessing that this is the name, and it's been a minute since I've been in this environment. This is the name of my DPA connector server. So similar to how we're basically going to the PSM SSH proxy. We're pointing to the
So actually, that full first half, what you have highlighted, as well as Wozniak, that's Steve's identity. That's his single sign-on account. So his basically his email address in the grand scheme of things that he uses to log into applications.
I know this is the instance ID of the target in AWS that I want to connect to.
That's right.
And then this is what is this? The DPA tenant?
That's the DPA solution that you're reaching out to do the authentication and authorization, and that's the bastion basically.
Okay. So but that's not my DPA connector though. It's just where my DPA connector is synchronized to. So it will then
correct.
Tunnel to the DPA connector.
Yeah. So that piece is basically the SaaS solution, the SaaS service that knows when Steve needs to connect. There's some connectors on the connecting to the connector on the back end to establish that session.
Okay. So if I can connect with this, by the way, it does work. I have a DPA connector in my lab and everything. So if I were to start up my PowerShell terminal, and then go on to the desktop and run this script, it'll connect over SSH, and it'll prompt me too for, if I can do a period and not a comma here, it'll prompt me for my credentials, which I usually fat finger at least one time because it's not the good old CyberArk 1 password I'm my muscle memory's for. So this is basically asking me to put in my password for CyberArk identity because I am going to authenticate using CyberArk identity here. So let me make sure I get this right. Nope, I already messed it up. See if I can delete and try again here.
I always say I can't talk and type at the same time. So
it actually worked. So I authenticated successfully. It's going to connect. So we're going to wait, right? And this is it, basically creating a tunnel to the DPA connector in AWS from the tenant and everything. Starting the recording, I assume. I can't get access to the UI, so I can't see. But then here we are. I'm Steve Wozniak. I authenticated as Steve Wozniak. I'm a developer that needs to access where my application is operating so that I can troubleshoot something locally. Let's call that the scenario here. And so now I've got access. And if I were to, who am I? I'm Ops Team 1. So I share this now with the rest of my team. I'm not a developer, apparently. I'm an operator. But either way, right? Steve Wozniak's doing something here in a group manner. And other people can now share this identity, have the trust created basically just in time is the whole idea. So very cool.
Where's your MFA? No MFA?
No MFA. This is
what a demo.
Well, this is BT's account, and I would have needed to move the identity app information over to BT's account to get that to work. And I already have 4 tenants as it is, and I can't keep that straight, let alone like having to throw on a 5th and then switching all the time. I can only hold 2 applications on my phone because one's, the test flight app, and then the other is the actual what's in the App Store app.
Right.
So I'm already running out of room on my phone.
We just need to create another account and identity called Steve Jobs and tie it to your email, and you'll be able to MFA, man.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but yeah, this is pretty cool. I like it for doing this. What I would like to see now, we're getting into the point, the part, and Joe and Andrew, now that you have seen a little bit of this, I know, Joe, you got more experience with it, but Andrew, you've seen it now probably for the first time. Let's play a quick game of where I'd like to see this go. I always like to take our products when they're in the first phase of being released, right? And they're not fully baked out or available yet. And then playing like, here's where I'd like to see it go. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is Ansible. Dude, Ansible. This would be so perfect for Ansible needing to connect to remote targets in order to run automated playbooks. And I know right now it's dealing with CyberArk identity and authenticating that way and stuff, but this at its foundation is perfect for something like that, where Ansible can handle federation of identity providers itself, and maybe there's something that we can come up with, the great brains in R&D can come up with, where instead of trying to use the PSM SSH proxy for Ansible, we can utilize this and have just-in-time identities created. And now we don't need to store any secrets in Conjure, in Ansible, or anywhere really. It's just-in-time access for Ansible. Am I crazy?
So, Joe, I don't think you're crazy at all. And I guess a question for Mike is, I know we are obviously working on the, DPA for machine-to-machine type use case. Is that going to be actually part of the DPA service, or is it another service that is in the works, right? But it would be kind of similar, and I guess help with what Joe's use case was.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot about it, so don't know. I've heard that scenario. I've heard database type of just-in-time access, right? As a need that could be looked at. Network devices in the same manner, but don't know exactly what our teams have in mind for developing.
That's all right. We'll get there. Right now, we just, we'll start with Linux. That looks great. I mean, I just showed it. Deal with Windows. I think that'll solve a lot of the use cases at a lot of different enterprises who love their Windows, right? And then we can go from there and see. So, Andrew, what do you think about this? Is this the first time you've been seeing this, dude?
Yeah, no, first time. I think it's really, really neat, and it's always like a theme that you get into in like integration side of it and consultation side of it, of using the right tool for the job. And I think it is a great use case for like Ansible on those local hosts to come in and do that elevated work that you need to do, instead of like retrieving it from 3 different services downstream way through it. I think it's really, really neat. I'd have to get out and play with it to really get like an idea of how to break it and what to do next with it, because I always like to test the outer bounds. I never want to just do this is the basics demo. I want to go and like hit the outer bounds of what can't it do.
Yeah,
I'd have to get on the server. So if you give me access, I'm sure I could probably break it.
Here's example one of what you cannot do, and that would be pseudo escalation when you require a password, because what's the password? I don't know. I just timed right in.
Right.
That goes into a little bit further, right? And I think some of the demonstrations that Brandon BT has been doing, maybe some that Mike has been doing, combine kind of this just-in-time access with our least privilege, right? So looking at EPM for Linux and running that on, say, Red Hat 8, Red Hat 7, CentOS, Ubuntu, and I think AWS AMI is going to be supported in the next release. And in that case, you could give someone just-in-time access,
right,
with a limited privilege account. Maybe they're a developer, maybe they're a infrastructure guy or girl, whatever, right?
Yeah.
They get in, they get access to an account that has some limited permission sets. Now, as long as that EPM agent is in place as well, if they need to sudo something, they can based on those centralized policies. And I think that's pretty powerful, especially as we get to these more dynamic systems or these ephemeral systems. Like someone might be deploying something in AWS, it only needs to be there for a short period of time. We don't want to vault those accounts. It doesn't make sense to vault them because it's not going to be there forever. But somebody still needs access, right? Still needs to get to it to troubleshoot something or do whatever they need to do. And it's a great way to kind of give that access based on the attributes, like Mike said. And what I really like about it, which I wish you could show, is how the policies are built, right? Because it's really easy compared to some of our other solutions or some other.
How easy is that for you to show, Mike? Is it something that you could just share your screen and then pop into it right now?
Yeah, I'd love to. Give me a second to get logged in, and we'll take a peek at it.
All right, cool. So while
that's going to be my question of how easily can you scale out? Like it's cool in a demo, but like how do we take that and go to like 50,000 Windows machines or Linux machines?
Yeah, I think, Andrew, one of the things, like when it first came out in like a closed beta, and Mike can attest to this and speak to it because he probably heard it from a million of our closed beta customers. When we first came out with it, especially like for AWS, you needed to deploy a connector in, say, every subnet that you wanted to connect to a machine in. Well, that doesn't make a lot of sense if I have a VPC and I got like 5 subnets or 3 subnets in there, and they can all talk to each other. Why would I want to do that, right? So they've created or made some improvements where now you don't need one for like every single subnet. You can do a single one in a VPC. They've also made like pooling, which I think Mike can show, in the pooling stuff. And the update process is what I really love about this, because it's a real SaaS capability. It's not like when you deploy a PSMP, like a session manager proxy, and now you've got like 20 of them in your environment, and they're all on different versions because they were deployed at different time, and you have bad change management, or you have too many and you don't want to break something, right?
Yeah.
With DPA, it's a lot more streamlined. It's a true SaaS product. So I'll kind of hand it off now since Mike has that up.
Yeah, thanks for stalling for me there. Um, yeah, you guys, I can see actually. I see a little logo here. So you're seeing the screen. This is our landing page. There's 3 bits to get things going, and I hinted at it. Earlier, Joe, is that under an hour to go through these 3 pieces to get the show rolling. This is kind of an inside look to Impact. So anybody that's coming to Impact, I'll actually be doing this demonstration live and in person, as well as with a recorded session around this. But the scalability is really awesome. And so if we take a look at our recurring access policy, which I think is what Joe Strickland was starting to hint at there, at how easy it is to build out that policy, we can see that I have a couple going here. So I went with the Top Gun theme. I guess everyone's going to know my my exciting demo story for Impact. So everything's Top Gun based in my demo, and so there's a Top Gun support team that needs to access VMs both in AWS and Windows systems. So if we dig into that particular policy, we'll see that first, naming it obvious, right? What is this policy about, and when should it be applied? So specific date and time frame, or is it always on? And then what are the target assets, the target systems that we want to be able to connect to, or rather we want our end users to be able to connect to, assuming they're authorized and authenticated. So if we dig into AWS, how we're defining that. So from a scalability standpoint, it's pretty awesome. We could define and say EC2 instances in a particular AWS account. So within your AWS organization, specific AWS regions are in scope. Or maybe specific VPCs. We're going with all here, and we've actually tied it down by the custom tag. So that attribute-based access control, a new server spins up as long as we've applied the key value DPA and then the value to that target. It's going to be in scope for this policy, and anybody that we've defined has access to this policy is going to be able to connect to these target systems. So very easy to scale from that perspective. Let's just take a quick peek, and then I'll let you guys steer me on where we should go next. Is defining the who. So if we go into who's a member of the Top Gun support team here that we're going to allow access to these systems, we'll see that in your example, you logged in. It logged Steve in as a operations guy. So when we log in through this workflow, I think I have Iceman as a member of Top Gun support. When he logs in, he's going to be logged into the Linux system as Top Gun. We could specify a default out-of-the-box user as well. So EC2 user, if it's an EC2 instance, is the default root credential, or we can specify manual customized accounts as well here, like we've done. And then we use grouping or roles to define who's a member of the team. So identity is the backbone here. We have roles in identity, and we can simply search for those. We can also tie in and search for 80 groups, and it's real-time search. So if we're looking for that specific group, we just start typing what we're looking for. It'll find everything that matches that. We can see it's already been selected, and we're good to go. Anyone who's a member of this role is going to be able to authenticate to our target system. So super easy to define.
That's cool. So you can define an access window that is centered around like the maintenance window or something like that. If you're only going to give people access during certain, outside of business hours times, just in case something were to go down or they need to restart something, they have that.
Yeah.
Can this?
Yeah.
This may be coming in the future, or so you may not have an answer to this, but can this be tied to a ticketing system somehow? Like, is there an API available that I can define a lot of this stuff utilizing like ServiceNow or something like that?
It is, get in trouble saying specific things, but we're hoping to have that ready by Impact to talk about a workflow. It's probably going to be a more basic type workflow integration to start off with, but July is what we're hoping for. Again, your disclaimer of this isn't the end all be all. We'll see what happens there, but it's high in priority that there needs to be some sort of workflow in addition to just the access time frame.
What do you think, Andrew? Do you think that this solves the scaling questions that you had initially?
To a point, I was going to actually see. Could you show me the on-prem workflow of onboarding an on-prem machine?
Yeah. So from a installation perspective, we do that on platform management. You on-prem is going to be Windows only today. So we'll see a Windows workflow here, and we need just a couple things. It's a quick process as well. We're going to have our domain, our Windows domain. So domain joined is a requirement today for the system. So we have topgun.local as our domain. Then we walk through 2 bits of installation scripting. Or rather, one's a download, one's more of a script. So our identity connector, which allows for the bind to Active Directory, for the creation and removal of the ephemeral accounts, we're going to use a domain credential for that, as well as our domain, our DPA connector, which is a script that can be run. Could be run on a Linux box or a Windows box. If we want to combine the identity connector and the DPA connector on one machine, which I would probably advise. We'll see that it'll provide us a PowerShell script that's good for a particular time, 15-minute token to run this. We just copy it, right-click it into PowerShell, and we'll have our connector installed.
So everything is copy pasta.
Copy pasta.
Love it.
Hadn't heard that before, but yeah, copy pasta.
Awesome. What do you
That's
think?
cool. That's amazing. Like this thing is really it's really exciting. So yeah, obviously I think through an API it definitely opens up like how do I go through like 5 machines to 50,000 machines? Obviously that's a priority. That's cool. That's interesting. What I thought was interesting is it said exactly and it had this machine name on there. So my question what I was leading into was, is there like a regex pattern of machines like SQL servers so that way I can I don't know kind of where I was going with it yet, but I saw the exactly like that and I was like, oh, can we do a wildcard on the machines, which is kind of interesting.
Prefix.
Yeah. So I see where you're going with that now, Andrew. And yeah, great point. So on the Linux, AWS, Azure side, we're going to go that tagging attribute. On the Windows side today, we're going off of FQDN for the Windows domain system. So my scope, keeping it locked down, was that I could only connect to a machine named target.topgun.local. Anything else would be denied for the Topgun support team, but we can do different operators, individual lines here, or go that wildcard route, or even a prefix, right? So if it's something that starts off with Topgun SQL, it starts with that. Anything that comes after, so if it's system SQL DB2, that's going to fall in line, right, and be part of your connection that's going to be allowed. So you can build it out that way. This is more stuff that's going to be in development, right? Maybe uploading a CSV, maybe tying into a CMDB tool to know what assets you have that should be part of this policy. Something that would be less manual than multiple lines of adding here is coming down the line as well.
How many subdomains do you support?
Right now, today, it's going to be 1 connector per domain. Very near future, there's multi-domain support coming, but I don't know what the upper echelon of number of domains is going to be for that.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you could wildcard, like let's say the infrastructure considerations of migrating all the DNS to like star.sql.topgun.local, and then you can give the role to the SQL administrators to come in and do their backup restore process. You have a really, really, really exciting way to come in and manage that temporary access directly to machines that you would never want to be on, but you have to get on every once in a while. And right now, I don't know what most enterprises are doing, but a lot of the time that's like a break glass scenario of get the domain user out and hop on that MS SQL server and let's start spinning off services to do a backup and restore or whatever.
Yeah,
that's really neat.
Yeah, heard those use cases. I saw a pop up. I don't know. Do I answer questions on the fly, Joe, or is there a QA session that I should answer a question?
Mod from YouTube actually asked a question regarding if it only works with CyberArk Identity at the moment, or if there's other identity providers that are supported.
Yeah, so identity is the backbone that will be provided. It's going to come with it, but we will federate. It does federate with other third-party IDPs. So definitely can do that.
CyberArk Identity federates with the third parties, or DPA does?
CyberArk Identity federates with the third parties. And then, so when you're authenticating with Windows today, you showed the Linux workflow of Steve. If Steve was connecting to a Windows machine, that third-party federation is working for Windows and should be in time for Impact-ish, is going to be available for SSH.
Awesome. And then we did have another question while things were going on. I think this one's more directed at me, but brings up the question of, is there a REST API available for this today? Because I guess if so, I got some work ahead of me, don't I? So Tabiso's trying to put me to work and out there on YouTube.
Chop, chop, Joe. Chop, chop.
I know. Well, we did just announce 12.6 going GA. So there are new API endpoints that were introduced there. And I do have the Skim API from Joe Strickland. After that was his call to action after the last office hours. He got that to me, and I'm just a slacker, I guess. So it all falls on me. But is there a REST API available for this, or is that something that's coming in the future?
Yeah, they're on request. Our teams are providing that documentation, and it's getting expanded. And it should be, I assume it'll be public pretty soon. But we do have some stuff coming.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I will keep an eye out for that. And Tabiso, when I get that, I don't imagine it would be anything that is as robust as like the management API for PAM or anything like that. It shouldn't be too hard to work into Postman.
I wanted to show because Joe Strickland did bring it up, some of the additional VPC peering kind of capabilities, one connector to many that we support for connector pools. And rather than showing it in the console, I like this architecture diagram because I think it speaks a little bit more than seeing me click through some buttons. But we have a one DPA connector here in this particular subnet, and with the VPC peering enabled, the connector is going to be able to communicate and establish the SSH connections to targets in other VPCs and subnets.
Does it support custom protocols? Like, let's say, like not just doing everything off of 22.33.89 and all that, or is it just completely standard out of the box?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do custom protocol for that if necessary, but I don't know. I haven't tested that out.
Kind of an oddball question. I'd be shocked if anybody aliased 22 to something else. That might.
Yeah, I was going to ask how often.
Be a bigger problem.
I haven't seen that one. I've seen it with RDP, right? That one be aliased so that people can't just try to connect in over RDP 3389, right? But yeah, I hadn't seen that with SSH, but hadn't tried.
Probably not a very valid like point or thought process, to be honest.
All good.
Cool. Well, I definitely like it. I'm going to be using it. I can't wait to start to integrate it with some of our C-Cubed Alliance partners and using it for things like Ansible. I think that's when I will really get super duper excited, is when I can start to get just-in-time credentials to Ansible to use. But this is really cool. It's a cool direction. It's definitely something that is long overdue. And it's a question that I get a lot. I don't know about you, Andrew. You're more of the post-sales type guy. But I do definitely get asked a lot about at least certificate signed SSH keys, right? And how we handle that. Typically that's done by other secrets management solutions through PKI as a service. It's like a portion of that, or like a branch off of that. It's cool that we have dynamic privileged access now as our answer to that. So we're starting to see that evolution to dynamic identities, right? Not needing to manage. Oh gosh, remember the days of what was it? We would set up in EPV through the PVWA. We'd basically target an OU in Active Directory. What was that called? And it was all the administrator accounts. and we would manage the administrator accounts when the machine would get added on.
This is the older accounts discovery capability, right, Joe?
Yes,
So
yeah.
you would basically go into
Discovery.
CPM, and you could do it for ESXi hosts or Unix hosts.
Yes.
Or basically, it would look at an OU when it found a new machine. It would use a template to onboard that built-in admin account.
Auto detection. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Back in the days, I think everyone was using like a virtual machine template that they created, right? So as part of that template, when you deployed a new VM, let's say a Windows 2012 back then, right? Some of you guys, hopefully you're not still doing that, but I'm sure we have some of you folks on the phone doing that still. But yeah, there we go. Stomping on my heart over there.
Hey man, you know what? It's like a mainframe. If it's not broke, don't.
Yeah, true. Yeah, so people would have their golden image per se, which had kind of that built-in local admin account. And when you deployed it, our method of onboarding it then was auto detection. Would see a new, basically a new object in the OU. It would automatically create the account in CyberArk, and then we would normally associate a reconcile account to connect to that system, reconcile it to something unique, and then boom, you have that system in a safe, onboarded, ready to go. I kind of still like auto detection in certain examples, especially like for things like ESXi hosts, because it could support that.
Yeah, but
it's not so commonly used anymore.
The only downfall that I ever had with it is, you have a safe with 1 billion accounts with the username administrator, right? And it becomes hard. The way that everything in the PVWA comes default to really dictate without seeing the address what the administrator was for. And so in the off chance that developers are using something like the CP or the CCP, and then referencing the username instead of the object name, it would become a big problem because you're targeting the same safe, and then there's 1 billion administrator usernames. It's like, well, what do you want to use? And DPA kind of takes that away now completely. Like, you shouldn't need to auto detect or anything. I guess you still would want to keep the account managed and stuff like that, but you wouldn't need to go through that user experience of trying to figure out which administrator account to use out of a safe of 1 billion of them, because you could just use DPA to create that JIT administrator that you could access. And does that have a time to live on it, Mike? Is there a time to live on like that account to where I'll get logged out after like 30 minutes or something like that?
Yeah, in the policy I was showing right underneath the timeframes where you specify what hours you can connect, there's an idle limit as well as a session limit. So say 2 hours by default. After that, you're terminated. If you walk away for more than 10 minutes, customizable, it's gonna disconnect. And I just want to add on, right, is we're not saying stop vaulting the highly privileged break glass credentials, right? But stop using them for an operational type of task like that.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I love it. Hopefully everybody who's going to Impact will get more of it. So I know that only some of the presentations, the breakout sessions that are going to be happening live at Impact are going to also be available virtually. I recorded mine earlier this week. So mine is going to be virtual. Is yours going to be virtual as well?
Yep. Maverick, Goose, and Iceman have already been recorded in our session. So.
Cool. So everybody who's going either virtual or in person to Impact will get to see more of this. Also visit the Genius booth in the Discovery Center at Impact, and Mike will be more than happy to show you more and talk to you more and answer any questions that you may get between now and then. But we are on an office hours. We've got a whole nother hour to go here. We're looking for questions that we can then go ahead and answer. And we do have one. How are you guys on PSM questions? You feeling pretty comfortable with PSM lately? Because I have a question for us here. Unfortunately, it's the only question so far. So hopefully people will start to ask their questions if they have any in chat, and we'll be able to answer them. But we'll kick it off with Pramod, who has a question here on PSM. And his question is regarding SSMS or SQL Plus or SQL Developer. After establishing a connection to connect to another database, if they have credentials, can they restrict the PAM connection to allow only to a specific database? And I don't understand how that would work, but maybe you guys would. Because if you're connecting with PSM in the first place to SSMS or something like that, you don't have access to the credentials. You don't know what the credentials are. That's the whole point of the privileged session manager, is to click a connect button and not need to know that. So I wonder how, maybe we can brainstorm on that first and try to think about how could we establish another connection to a database. There is such a thing in like SQL Server that I've used before, like linked databases, where I can log into one and maybe it's part of a greater data warehouse and it's linked. Maybe something like that. But he's saying if we have credentials, I don't understand how you would really have credentials in that case. The whole point is that you don't. What do you guys think?
I'm wondering, would it think you're already authenticated? So if we launch at SQL Server Management Studio and PSM, you're already authenticated. Is it going to let you connect to another database without re-authenticating? That's what I'm brainstorming in my head.
So it's the same SQL Server, multiple databases. Can we limit the databases on that particular host?
So as far as I'm aware, once you're in a SQL Server Management Studio, if you were to add other databases, they would work as long as those credentials are valid for those databases. So without kind of setting up a single credential for a single database, it would allow you to connect into, let's say it's a domain credential and it has access to 5 or 6 different databases on the same target system. Theoretically, they could go into SQL Server Management Studio and add the other databases on that host, right? It's not like if you're thinking about another PSM plugin that may be similar, right? We have the ability to create MMC plugins that have snap-ins, and we can lock that snap-in so that it's only when a user opens it through PSM, it's only that single snap-in, which may be like Active Directory users and computers, and we're able to lock that based on the configuration. With SQL Server Management Studio, I don't think we have the ability to block someone from going up in the actual UI of SQL Server Management Studio and saying connect another database, or even with SQL Plus, for instance, right? They connect once they're on. As long as those credentials are good, it should still let them connect to other databases that are on that system.
I think the answer, and chat answered this, I believe. I think the answer lies outside of PSM. It's not something that PSM is built to do. And so, as you'll see here from Jeff, the credential boundary should be used for SQL.
Like a credential ACL.
Instead of controls within the PSM. And then even Kevin Elwell, who is one of our CyberArk champions, he said that they could be using, local DB account and passwords. And then even further to that point, instead of using a single account with access to many databases, they would use several accounts that only have specific access to single databases. And so that way now we can onboard them. There's no real management overhead on having all of these accounts only going to one database, because if you think about it, without CyberArk in the picture, I just want one account with access to many databases because I don't want to have to manage any more than I can handle. But with CyberArk handling that automatic management, I can now break this up into functional accounts per database, because CyberArk's taking that workload off of me and taking care of the management, taking care of the rotation, the audit, the compliance, everything that comes along with that. And now they can just choose what specific database they want to connect to through the PVWA's user interface and connect with PSM directly to that database. So I think that is we've got a clarification here from Pramod, so I'll bring this up too. So his example here that he said is that he connects to a DB using PSM, and then he has credentials for B, which are not vaulted. He wants to restrict the connection of being able to connect to a database with credentials that aren't vaulted. Is that even something that PTA can do? I don't even know that PTA can sniff that out and kind of prevent that from happening, our privileged threat analytics.
By default, PTA couldn't do that. There is the ability to build plugins for PTA if someone really wanted to be able to detect that kind of thing. But in order for that to work, PTA would need to be getting the syslog information, from that database, and we would need to build it's a JavaScript-based plugin that would be looking for specific activity, like a logon event to the other database, and then it would be able to detect it. I've never built one personally. I can throw someone on the bus here. Adam Markert from the Northeast team has built one for, I think, like Cisco. So it would detect Cisco logon events, and it would look to see if the account was previously checked out from the vault. Very similar to what we do with like Windows, where we're looking for an account that's vaulted, or an account that's not vaulted, connecting to a device that we are protecting, right? So in that instance, I mean, yes, it would be definitely possible to build one for PTA, and from Adam's description to me, it's a fairly small JavaScript plugin that you would create. Now, getting it to work just right, there would be some tuning involved. Obviously, that you also need the appropriate logs. So, PTA would need to get those logs in, parse them, have some sort of logic, and then it could theoretically, if you were going through PSM, it could trigger a session suspension, right, or termination. I think the other thing, if you're going through like SQL Plus, do we have the ability to do any kind of command access control there? Or is that only with session management proxy? I can't remember, Joe. This might be better for you. Can we do any command access controller or any kind of alerting? I guess with PTA, you could build alerts that are like, look for this string or this activity based on the Windows title or the keystrokes.
That you could do. But it would, so I think that what would probably be the easier solution is something that Carlo mentioned here, where if you're going to connect to another database, that's going to be recorded by the PSM. And maybe, as you're auditing these recordings, you can see the events, because this is Windows-based action, the session is going to be audited. And you can elevate the risk score of where that happened, that connection to the new database, that action took place, elevate the risk score so that those PSM sessions where that occurs have a higher risk score and they get reviewed a lot sooner and a lot more often. I think that would probably be the easiest way of solving that and at least getting visibility on it. I mean, obviously, where we want you to be is all your credentials are vaulted. You're using PSM for everything, and there's no credentials that are not vaulted. Like, that should just not be happening at all. And I think that goes without saying, but that would be the perfect solution here. If they're not vaulted, vault them. Problem solved now. You don't have to worry about anybody doing that and skirting around.
Vault them and rotate them.
Yeah. Vault them, rotate them. Now they don't know what the heck's going on. They have to connect through there. I stalked Adam Markert on GitHub to see if he put that JavaScript up here, and doesn't look like he has anything regarding that up there. He does have a lot of cool EPM stuff, though, that he's put up on GitHub. But I'm not going to share that out. We do have, though, moving on here, we do have a question regarding EPM, and I don't know if anybody can answer this. I think Mike can answer half this question. Rucifer on Twitch asked if there's an ETA on EPM for Linux and DPA for Linux. I think we kind of sort of have one for DPA for Linux, EPM for Linux. I don't really have any information on it. I know that Brandon Traffenstead, our very own BT, will be doing a breakout session at Impact on EPM for Linux that will be available virtual as well as in person. So he would have more information there.
I think.
Yeah, Mike, I can talk a little bit. I'll let you handle the DPA piece for sure. So the EPM for Linux is available now for existing EPM customers. You may need to set up a new set. Say you're an EPM customer, your existing set that you have may not have the EPM for Linux policy section enabled. So if you wanted to use EPM for Linux, just go in, add a new set. When you go into that new set, you will see under the advanced policy section a Linux policies piece. And it should be in our public documentation as well in terms of what versions of Linux are supported. So I think right now we have support for RHEL 8, RHEL 7, CentOS 8 and 7, certain versions of Ubuntu. I would have to check. I'm trying to pull it up real quick while we're chatting. And I know in the next couple of weeks, they're planning on support for AWS AMI, AMI2.
Cool.
Now, that being said, you would need to go in there and make policies and do things like that. And it's pretty straightforward. If you're an EPM person, you should be able to kind of figure it out in terms of how the policies work and whatnot. Just trying to see if it is.
If you're an EPM person, so it's not so.
I mean, it's pretty straightforward for anybody. I feel like now I would troubleshoot and create like a set to do some testing on devices to make sure that the policies are being applied how you expect them to.
Is this like OPM or on-demand privileges manager, or this is completely different?
No, I mean, it's completely different. It's a lot more straightforward in that sense. Yeah. So in our public docs, so Joe, I don't know if you want to share your screen.
Oh, okay.
I'll put it in the chat and then you can just share out the link or share your screen, but we do have it in the public docs. So it is available now.
Yeah, let me get
and
that.
There's a pretty quick walkthrough on kind of how you make the commands, how you apply them. What I really like about EPM for Linux is you don't have to run pimsu. It's a sudo replacement, right? So you just actually run sudo. And then if you have the permissions, it'll let you do what you've tried to do, right? So it's all documented out there. I don't know where we document the actual supported OSs. That's what I want to find, so I can get that to you.
Here we go. Oh, I like this.
Yep. Yeah. And it's like kind of like DPA where you can do regular expression, you can do like exact match. I think you could even do hashes. So if you wanted to be able to let some people run scripts in an elevated fashion, but on others, you can do it based on hash so that if it gets changed, it won't run.
Oh, okay.
There are certain things with EPM for Linux that are not there yet that you would be used to with EPM, things like collecting events in the events inbox. I don't think that's currently there, but I know it's fastly approaching or it's high on the list, right? And then I think Mike just posted the link for the supported operating systems. So I was maybe wrong. Red Hat 8.7 and Ubuntu 18 and 20. I know AWS, like I said, is coming.
Yeah.
I would assume that since we support RHEL, we would also support CentOS. I mean, I think I've tested it on CentOS, but it's not officially supported. So just like you said at the beginning of the call, use at your own risk. But yeah, if you're a current EPM customer, create a new set and you should have access to this.
Cool.
From a licensing point of view, we license based on machine, right? So an EPM system is the same as a Windows system in terms of a license for us.
RHEL 8, huh? Have you ran this on RHEL 9?
Whoa, Joe, you've gone too far. I haven't even downloaded RHEL 9 or installed RHEL 9.
I think it just went GA like 2 weeks ago, so you're not.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about.
I'll do it in like 2 years when they're deprecating RHEL 7.
Awesome. This is really neat. I like it.
I mean, I think closing the loop on the question, EPM and DPA, there's really nothing's packaged or anything like that today. But in theory, as long as it's a supported EPM Linux endpoint, then you could combine the two products for that workflow, right? Is that your target, your user that logs into a target system, whatever they're logged in as when you run Who Am I, make sure you have the appropriate policy in place on EPM for Linux, and you have that privilege elevation capability.
And Mike, do you know if on EPM for Linux, so in OPM in the days of old, there was a way where when you ran pimsu, you could specify your vault username. So even if you were logged in as like a local account, you could run pimsu -vu, which would be vault user, and then you could say vault user is Joe. Then pimsu would prompt you for Joe's password. Do you know if that's possible with EPM for Linux? I feel like it may not be because we're doing kind of like a pseudo kernel replacement.
Right.
And it's doing the policy based on the currently logged in user, but I just don't know. So I wanted to ask.
Yeah, I don't know. My hunch is kind of what you said there at the end, is that it's based on the currently logged in user. But I don't know for sure. Yeah.
So one thing that I was talking to some customers about, which kind of completes the whole story in my opinion, is right now when you're doing the just-in-time access for like a Linux machine, right? When you build the policies, you're creating the policy that says, if you're in this role or this group, you may access these systems based on a specific attribute, and you're going to access as this user, right? So let's say you're in the application developers group. When you log into these Linux systems, you're logging in as app team or developer or something, right? But that developer user already exists on the endpoint. I've heard that there's possibilities where we're going to be working or integrating with, like if someone has a bunch of systems with SSSD involved, right, or some sort of AD bridging, you would be able to use DPA to access the target system as yourself without knowing like a credential. You don't have a credential on that system, but DPA is generating the short-term cert. You're getting authenticated to it as yourself. And if we do that, then leveraging EPM makes it even easier, right? Because now we are logging into a target system as myself, even though I don't have a username and password or an SSH key for that system. And then I can run EPM, I can run sudo whatever, and EPM knows who I am because I'm already authenticated as myself. Do you know, Mike, have you heard that from a DPA point of view?
Yeah, I've heard that, but no particular timeline. But we're definitely looking into an AD bridging type of workflow, just like you described. Yep.
Cool.
And Joe, do you think that would help you guys? I mean, do you think that would make more sense to log in like as yourself? Let's say I'm a customer and I have Centrify AD bridging, and it's working well, but I just want to centrally manage that sudoers. And maybe I also want people to go through like a bastion. So now I just let them get access via DPA, and DPA can do a lot of cool stuff. And if you integrate it with your federated identity source, you could even do like, hey, you're coming from the wrong location, you can't log in, or DPA can be able to do that. And now you use EPM to get the privileges.
That would be perfect. I mean, it prevents a lot of the problems that that can happen now that developers are being targeted. Like it used to be, developers were never really allowed to work remotely. You always had to come into the office, right? Like when I worked on the SOC team, we would always make a big deal about it. No developers were allowed to work outside of the office. They had to be on the corporate network. They had to be, at their desk in the cubicle. There was no remote work. That's not the case anymore. It can't be the case anymore in a lot of circumstances. And so what ends up happening is there's a lot less oversight on the developers, and they're able to make themselves more well-known to the outer world, whether they're asking for, help on Stack Overflow or these other places. Somebody who's just out there doing recon, an attacker or something like that, you can get a sniff of a developer. And then it gives you a target to fish, right? You can start to do some targeted phishing. And if I get access somehow, through a malicious payload or whatever the case may be onto their endpoint, and they have SSH keys all over the place that they've been using that are cached and stuff, I hit the jackpot. But if they're dealing with some sort of just-in-time provisioning, like using DPA and stuff, there's nothing left behind there. There's no SSH key that's being cached. There's no fingerprint, right, that I can use in order to understand or even start to map out the kingdom, let alone get access to the keys of the kingdom. And so it's a huge benefit. And then even let's say in the off chance that I do get my hands on something and I do get access to DPA, but I can only make that access from like my endpoint or a different endpoint, like a third party endpoint of some kind. If you're blocking where the connection is coming from, like I'm stuck in the water again. Like, yeah, sure, I may have access, but because I'm not coming from, the developer's endpoint, which may set off bells and whistles that it's happening and stuff, depending on what endpoint protection they got going on there, which is why I couldn't do it in the first place. It's a lot better from a security perspective to protect the developers, because that's really what it's boiling down to now. Like, look at all of the security breaches that have been happening. It's all something to do with the developer somewhere, and it's a combination of things that are causing this to happen. Everything is automated now, so the developers' project timelines are shortened drastically. They have these deadlines that they always have to meet, and so they're rushing to meet them. And what happens when you rush? There's no attention to detail anymore, so things slip up. SolarWinds 1.2.3 makes it into GitHub, and then an attacker gets access to your CI/CD stuff. So there needs to be a lot more protection around the developers. And I think that EPM for Linux plus the DPA are two great tools that are going to go towards increasing that protection for them. I don't think that they should be involved in security at all, honestly. I'm not saying developers need to start being secure. They don't need to be secure. We should make sure they're secure, though. They are consumers of a service. Let them consume the service, but in a secure manner. The second that we start to try to make ourselves known, what we're doing to the developer, is when all hell breaks loose and it becomes a huge issue and everything. I mean, think about it. When we used to go into a room and start talking about PAM and how we're going to start rotating passwords back in the day before secrets management was even a thing. Who are the two people in the room that we knew as soon as we went in there we were going to have the biggest troubles with? The DBAs and the Unix admins. And they are essentially the developers of today. They just want to consume the service and be left alone and not deal with security at all, because anytime security comes into the room, all things come to a screeching halt. And I've got this timeline, this deadline for this project I need to get done, and it's short, and I just need to be able to work unfettered. And so that's really, at the end of the day, the DevOps methodology, right? Like, that is DevOps. Turning developers into consumers, operating services that are provided to them to consume, and staying out of their way, man. Let them make money for the business through their source code and stuff. So a lot more to talk about at Impact on that.
Amen.
I can go off on a tangent all day about this, but I don't want to. I want to answer some questions here. So let's move on. Oh, ETA for DPA. For Linux, I think it's already available in the commercial market. Is there a timeline on the enterprise market?
I think very, very soon, probably Impact-ish would be a good expectation.
Cool. And if not, then I will send them to the Genius Bar to talk to Mike about why it's not.
I'll have a better answer by then if it's not. Yep.
All right, cool. Let's go on to the next question here. This one's from Twitch. We're getting a lot of activity from Twitch, which didn't happen last time. I like it. I think we had a lot of LinkedIn questions last time, but this one is a question I may not have the answer for. I mean, I definitely don't have the answer for. But when is account discovery going to get a delete action after the object is removed from AD? It was hard enough for me to get a delete action for the Vault Conjure synchronizer, let alone for accounts discovery.
That just depends on access to repos, Joe. You know that.
Are we even like doing anything with accounts discovery anymore from like a PVWA perspective? Like, I don't even think I've used
So,
it
Joe, I mean, this is a great question. I've had other people ask for improvements to accounts discovery. From a PM point of view, we would have to ask and kind of figure out. I think that's a good question to go forward. I know that a lot of looks like you got someone behind you over there, Mike, in the yard.
Little yard work.
Yeah.
Perfect timing, as luck would have it. The yard guys. Yep.
Yeah, just like hey, I mean, it could be a cat like walking across your desk.
Yard guys.
No, so I think accounts discovery could definitely use some improvement in that being one of them, right? So when you discover an account via accounts discovery, it gets added to the pending safe, like accounts pending safe. And I guess Mr. Hartstump is really asking, let's say you do a subsequent scan a couple of days later, that account has been removed from Active Directory, but the account stays in accounts discovery. Is that, I'm assuming that's the heart of the question. Unfortunately, I don't have an answer, so that would be one of those that Joe mentioned kind of before we can take back.
Is that the account feed here? Oh yeah. See, I never do this.
Yeah, so in pending and discovery, whenever you do an actual scan, there's a safe that is, what's the safe name? Let me look at it real quick. It's something pending at the end. And also, any object that gets onboarded through this means has a couple or a special flag associated with it if you go to actually look at the object properties. And there's some value within that by having that flag. But the accounts pending safe, I guess, I wonder, Mr. Hartstomper, to answer your question, you could set up like a periodic clear of that accounts pending safe so that, it will purge anything that is in this accounts discovery page where you just go in and clear that manually every week or so, or however frequently. That's really the only way to do it right now is actually go into PrivateArk, or I guess you could do it via the API since we have Joe on. So Joe, inside of PrivateArk, there's a safe, and the safe, I'm just logging in to get the name of it.
PrivateArk, man, that's gonna take up the rest of the time that we
No,
have.
no, we're definitely not. I'm just trying to find the safe name for you. But
okay.
There's a safe in PrivateArk that is something _ pending. Let me find it. Yeah, password manager _ pending, and I believe that is where all of the accounts that you find during, that's the accounts that are found during the accounts discovery process live in that safe until something is done with them. Whether you have like auto onboarding rules set up, let's say you've discovered some local administrator accounts and you created a auto onboarding rule that onboards them into a quarantine safe and then assigns a reconcile account, it associates with the platform that has our domain reconcile account. They get reconciled, or what, if that happens, they get removed from that pending safe, right? They get moved. But right now there's no automatic way. So I think, Joe, we would need to get that back from PM on,
Yeah.
if that's there. I don't know if there's an enhancement request for it. There may be. We would need to look. Then the failed there doesn't always actually mean the scan failed. If you click on it, Joe, it should give you a log. Yeah, password manager pending.
Open discovery log.
Yeah. And so I know one of the things that you've been promoting a lot more, Joe, is
username or password. Right? Maybe it's the way that I formed the, because I put the whatever.
How did you, when you set the scan up, what did you set it up at? Like what organizational unit or? /
username for the bind account. And I think that
it could also be that it just couldn't connect to certain systems. So sometimes it will say failed when it actually connected to many of the systems, but a few were unavailable.
Let's blame AWS and the security group setup that I have going on, and we'll call it a secure failure. How about that?
That's perfect. So kind of going to get this all the way back is, I know, Joe, you've been pushing a lot more on the automation side of automating the process of onboarding accounts. So if you're using Ansible or you're using Terraform or you're using some sort of cookbooks type deployment methodology, whether that's, a service or whatnot.
You don't even have to worry about it. Here, let me.
You just make it part of that process. You deploy a new system, have the account onboarded. And I know that's not a great answer, but I think from a business point of view, we're having a lot more customers kind of focus in that route. But I can definitely take it back to try to get a better answer for
bulk upload of accounts now, and you can create a bulk upload of accounts, and you can either list it out using JSON here, an accounts list of what you want to upload, or you can just provide a source file like a CSV file, and it'll read that and then go ahead and bulk upload all those accounts. So you can onboard it that way. But yeah, you're right, and it goes to a larger like provisioning program, right? And that involves a lot more than just CyberArk, and we're going to discover this account and stuff. Like there should be some sort of identity governance that's already happening that we can be a part of a greater picture, right? Whether that's like a ticket comes into ServiceNow or whatever ticketing system you use, requesting, like kicking off a new application, right? Application onboarding. And that would start the process of creating the accounts that we can expect to need, whether that's like database accounts for each staging environment, or like for dev, staging, production, that will be needed for like connecting to databases from the application. All these things, it really depends on your internal, what you do internally, how you automate that. But being able to create those and onboard those immediately is probably a better idea than doing accounts discovery. But I can also see where accounts discovery would be useful for picking up those accounts that are outliers and haven't been vaulted. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't expect, I'm going to be real, I wouldn't expect the ability to delete accounts that are discovered anytime soon, if at all, honestly.
So yeah, and again, they can be deleted manually. So if you go into that password manager _pending and delete them, all the accounts that show up in that list will be gone. And I don't know, is there a way to set up that kind of like an auto purge? I know there is a retention period, right? So they will be retained for at least the retention period where you will not be able to delete them. But you can lower that down, and any new accounts that get added to that password manager pending safe can be successfully deleted after whatever you lower that number to. I'm not sure if there's an easy way to just expire them. Like if we don't detect them again, expire those accounts. But it could be something you set up as an automated task that just runs, uses the API, some of Joe's cool stuff, or maybe PowerShell Pete or whoever, and
where's he at?
That thing out every once in a while, right?
Yeah, he's pretty active in the Reddit community, answering questions there. There's been a lot of great automation questions actually recently in the subreddit. I've been replying a lot more than normal, which is always a great feeling.
I think depending on how many pending accounts they have, they could write a pretty quick query that pulls the account data down from the pending safe, queries Active Directory using like a bind account to see if the account's still there. If the account's not in Active Directory anymore, remove it from pending.
Yeah.
Right? And that could run as a scheduled task. And that would probably be a little bit cleaner than just clearing the whole, pending account safe all at once a week. And that's kind of I feel like a scapegoat type answer. I do think we need a button or a checkbox that says, hey, if we do a subsequent scan, don't. Okay. So that's what I forgot, but you do clear the safe history. But can you do that with the API, Joe, or no?
Delete accounts? Well, clear.
You can delete it, but it also do the safe history clearing.
That's Packly.
But safe history gets cleared periodically anyways, right?
Yeah, there's an interval that it gets cleared out. I mean, it's a whole mess of things. I hate deleting accounts, honestly, but it's something that needs to happen.
Why do you hate deleting accounts?
It depends on the safe, honestly. We default when you create a safe. We select a default of, I think it's like 7 days.
7 days is the default, yeah.
And we hold on to an account after it's deleted for 7 days afterwards. And so you have to basically remember to come back. Like, say I want to delete a safe and it's filled with like 5 accounts still. I can delete the safe. It'll get flagged for deletion, and then the accounts will take 7 days before they're deleted. And I still have this safe that's coming up in my on my screen, and it just makes things so confusing when I just want the safe to delete. Sometimes, like, give me the option to force delete a safe. So I create my safes now with 0 days retention, which
yeah. I just checked my password manager pending is set to 0.
Unsafe for production, but I get the point behind it. It's just I'm running labs and tests and things like that in my environment, and I just want things to clean up. So it is what it is. I mean, people have ways around it and stuff. Or you could just be a hoarder, like Mr. Heartstomper out on Twitch, and just never delete anything and hoard all of the privilege and keep it. So anyways, yeah, we've got a lot of great activity going on in chat, and I know I don't let you guys see the chat, but that's because I want you focused on me. And what we're talking about.
But my automation that I got to do, Joe, I got to multitask.
You can pull up a platform if you want, and like YouTube or Twitch, and check out the chat that's going on there if you want. But
I pulled YouTube up for a second, and like there was a million comments, so I was like, it's a lot of reading.
We've got another question here, and I'm gonna spotlight it. But I feel like Yanni, who is a great partner of ours, Yanni actually owns and runs our CyberArk out on Reddit, so the CyberArk subreddit, as well as I think he does like the WhatsApp group for customers and things like that. Does a lot of great customer work for the community and stuff. There's this question by Michael around group accounts. He doesn't want to talk, about risk So we're gonna throw out all of the risk discussion right off the bat. Are there any platform settings that he needs to pay particular attention to, or timing concerns to watch out for if he wants to group many targets in a group like 100 or more? And I saw that Yanni was kind of engaging with him, or Jeff even, I think, was as well. And I don't know if they solved that question for him in the chat, but I figured I'd pose this to the group. As far as platform settings are concerned, I think that exclusive usage would probably be one of the main ones. I would think, just to make sure that people aren't stepping on each other's toes, accessing the same credential at the same time and stuff. I think that's really the big one. And then if you have exclusive usage that's set, and that's through policy settings of the PVWA, I think that if you have exclusive usage set, then you also need to make sure that on the platform there is a set min validity period so that it eventually unlocks. Otherwise, it would require the user to take action to unlock that and free it back up. What do you guys think about that? Any thoughts on that? Like the master policy here, we have enforce check-in, check-out exclusive access. I have it inactive, but here, let me give you the scenario. I'll give you a real world scenario that this kind of works with. All right.
Sure.
When I was a CyberArk customer many years ago now, I had to come up with a fire call process for developers to be able to get access to production databases in order to troubleshoot data in there, so that they can basically fix bugs in their application, right? And so the way that this process worked up till that point was they would submit an incident through a ticketing system, and then we would create a temporary local database user account that would give them access for 24 hours to the particular database that they were requesting access to in the incident. So they would only get access to that database using this account, and only for 24 hours. Then we would shut off the access, and they would need to re-request it or ask for an extension if they wanted it for any longer. And so by enforcing this check-in, check-out exclusive access, I could put 100 Oracle database accounts into our vault, have them automatically managed with a one-time password after that, process, because basically the one-time password doesn't change until you're done using the account. So check-in, check-out would be set, and then the min validity period on the platform that was applied to these accounts would be 24 hours. So even if the user didn't finish up after 12 hours and go in and unlock the account, you can click the unlock button on the account object and it frees it up and will set it for rotating the password immediately. After 24 hours, it would unlock itself and then start the one-time password rotation of the secret, just in case for whatever reason they were able to show or copy it. It would rotate and they wouldn't have their access anymore. So that's why I say that's how we handled this. Many people, sharing accounts. These shared functional accounts is essentially what they boil down to. Have you guys been asked this question at all in your dealings with customers or anything like that? Like, how have you guys handled this in the past, if at all? Has it ever come up before?
Mike, I'll let you take that.
No, yeah, it's the easy one for me is no. I haven't had to kind of think through that one in the past. What I have heard, just kind of reading through the comments that Yanni made is I think it was Yanni in there, that the more that you're looking to group together, the longer the process is going to take, and you need to take that into consideration and make sure it's somewhat manageable based on your resource available. But I got nothing else on that.
Yeah. Cool. Well, at least
easy for me as well. Not usually something that I ever really have to interface with at that moment.
Yeah, it's it definitely depends, right, on how you want to approach. I found that was the easiest approach for me. it freed up a lot of time for the people in the IAM department who were struggling to answer all these incidents all the time, and having these ridiculous SLAs. Like, there would literally be one person assigned to that particular queue every day, and it was a rotation, like an on-call rotation. So it was taking up a single resource's entire day just to sit there and monitor the incidents coming in for
That's
this
crazy.
firewall process, because it was across MS SQL, Oracle, and Tandem, HP nonstop mainframe. So all three of those, the Tandem fire call process was ridiculous. I never want to see a mainframe ever again after doing that. Like, it is the most antiquated BS, and no keystrokes make sense. It is so ridiculous. I am so glad that that's not, I don't have to do that anymore. I'm never going back to ops, guys. I'm gonna stick with you guys forever.
So I have a question, Joe. Was that question, about the group accounts, were they more looking for like settings in terms of optimization and overhead and things like that maybe performed on the vault? Or, because one of the things we do with folks that have a lot of safes and they have a lot of different platforms is when we set the platforms up,
Mm-hmm.
we advise them to scope the platform to certain safes, right? Because we want to limit the number of queries and things like that are happening by the CPM, because otherwise the CPM might be trying to access every single safe that you have to look to see if there's an account that's associated with it, right? And the more of that you have going on, the more just overhead that happens in the backend environment, which from a performance point of view, we want to limit as much as possible. So normally, there's that allowed safes parameter that you would set up and configure to, for this platform, we are going to put all these accounts in a safe that matches a regular expression or in a specific safe. With group accounts, seeing that it's like, in your case, potentially 100 accounts that share the same password.
Understand that? So they're talking about account grouping of it?
Yeah, so it's not a rotational group, but if you look in platforms, there's like your normal platforms, your dependent platforms, your
So they keep
groups.
password when they rotate?
So when you rotate one of them, say you have, in their case, you have 100 accounts that account name can be different. Okay. So it could be like on different systems, it could be the system name, but they are all going to have the same password. And so that's why I think Michael, being smart, said, risk aside, because obviously us on our side are going to say, no, why would you do that? There's some operational reason that they need it, right? So at the top, you see where it says group dependence.
Oh, yeah, groups.
Yeah, so groups. So rotational groups, Joe, you should be super familiar with, because rotational groups are for
dual control,
like dual accounts, right? For access with AAM. And you're probably real familiar. Now, in this case, if you go to an account, you can assign it to a group. And basically, if you had 5 accounts assigned to the group, even if they're different account names, they would share the same password. And when you trigger the change on one of them, it will trigger the change on all of them.
The only time I've ever had to do this before was older Oracle database clusters,
where you couldn't
replicate the password to each other when you change it on one. So you would have to create an account password group
and do it all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Which that makes sense from an operational point of view. I think nowadays Oracle, you need to look for the primary Oracle server. You update it there, and it should replicate on its own to the standbys.
Wow.
But in this case, you could do it for like SSH keys, username and password, etc. For me, when I'm looking at it,
I can't think of anything off the top of my head, though, that would affect performance.
I mean, only the things like that Mike mentioned would be how many users or how many people are, how many accounts are on that target system.
Right.
Also, I guess if you have an account group and like someone's using one of those accounts and then you trigger a rotation on one of them, and you have exclusive access enabled, that one account will be locked and the CPM won't be able to interact with it potentially. Yeah. And this is a theory. I haven't actually tested that. So I would need to kind of set up an account group, turn on exclusive access, and then use an account and then trigger a change on one of the others to see what happens. Because I would assume that if the account's locked to me, unless the CPM can check it in on its own, would it would not be able to change it. And then that account's going to become out of sync with the other 5 or the other 99 in his case.
I would say probably the platform settings to make sure that they are filled out and straight would be the notification settings. Make sure you've created notification settings, because if anything goes awry with the platform during the rotation, you may have half of your servers with a rotated password and the other half not. So you'll want to know immediately when something like that happens. And there's a whole notification settings section of the platform management that you can go in and set. Probably distribution lists would be probably what you would want to do, so that it's not just going to a single person and they go on vacation and then everything dies. You want it to go to a group box of some kind or a distribution list, so that whoever is available can go ahead and take care of what's going on and act immediately. I don't know that the ticketing system integration that we do, does that happen to, I know it can handle like syncing up, like, oh, an incident is found that is this incident number because somebody needs access to an account. Can it do the flip and open up incidents based on errors on the account object? Does it do that? Or is it just a one way where we're kind of just doing verification?
You're talking about our existing PSM integrations?
Yeah.
So if you actually, you may even have this available to you now. There's some examples where with like the out-of-the-box ServiceNow integration, the out-of-the-box Remedy integration, that's not something that's built. But because the ticketing system, there is a DLL that we provide that can be modified. You can make it do whatever you want. So you could theoretically make it based on vault codes or errors and things like that, create tickets, and you can change it up so that your ticketing workflows are much more complex.
So if you want to try hard enough, it's possible, but
we do provide an open framework for that, which is nice. So that, and there's some examples actually in the it's part of the PBWA installer, I think. So in one of the PBWA folders, like on your PBWA server, you probably have like an example, and it will have a couple of different code examples for doing different types of things. So if you're not starting from scratch, I mean, you're not starting with a plethora of knowledge, but we did give at least some examples on what you can do, and then the rest is up to you to kind of map out. And that's in that.
Joe went muted. Were you done?
I was done. Yeah.
Okay. So Andrew, as you can tell, had to drop. He had a customer issue come up, and so he had to go take care of that. But we definitely appreciated his presence and his input here. So we'll have him back in the future. I don't know that he'll be on the next one, but in the future, I kind of want to give other people a chance to do this. We got a couple more questions, and then we're going to try and finish off at the top of the hour at 4:00 Eastern time. So that should give us time to get through a couple more questions. Some of them may have been answered in the chat. Some of them may not have been, but the next one is actually from Yanni. Everything okay over there, Joe?
Yep. Yeah, it's good. I was running some DNA stuff on my lab, and I was like, where did it go? It just disappeared. But
yeah, you got to run it and not obfuscate the database system.
Yeah, I'm trying to sort that out.
All right. So this question from Yanni is there any recommended CPM plugin automation framework for automating thick client-based tools? For example, a client has a Java web app where they need to update a password through clicks. And I think that, if memory serves me correctly, there is Selenium now, or Autoit. Which is it? I think Autoit is for PSM, right? And then Selenium is for the password rotation.
Selenium, I think, was the Chrome browser automation. Not necessarily. I don't know if it would necessarily work with like a Java web app.
Well, I mean, what would we use for clicking? Like, there was something, and I forget the name of it, but the CPM came packaged with something, not Autoit, something different. And it would record your clicks and your keystrokes and stuff. And then you could create a CPM plugin out of that. And I don't know the name off the top of my head because it was something that I rarely, if ever, used. There's not something like that on the CPM today?
Not that I'm aware of. So obviously we have the plugin generator utility that's in the marketplace, but that is mostly for PSM connections. And let me see if it does CPM stuff.
Oh, okay. So Selenium is for PSM and CPM.
Oh, so I haven't tried it with, well, so Selenium, if you build the old, for instance, a good example, the old Google Chrome.
Chat got it.
iMacro, that's what it is.
iMacro, that's the name of it. I've never, like, AutoIt I run into just like in my general dealings and Googlings and things like that. Never once have I ran into iMac. I don't even know where we found iMacro from, how it ended up on the CPM as like the way to do things. I will say though, it works very well. I was able to use iMacro to create, before we had it out of the box in AWS, password changer dealy thing, whatever. You know, it would use AWS because they blocked the API. Like, there used to be an API for changing the password, and then they blocked it, and it kind of blocked our initial platforms and stuff that we were using. And so I used iMacro to create one, but then they started throwing up CAPTCHA everywhere and stuff, and then that threw a wrench in the whole iMacro setup. And it looks like Yanni's kind of given us a little bit more information on his question. The plugin utility can do CPM, but only console-based or web-based. And he's right. I actually had that up because I wanted to kind of touch on that for people who don't know. It's one of our newer, our newer way, right? We used to have pmterminal.exe that the CPM would run in order to interact with terminals and be able to change and rotate passwords that way. Now it's TPC. The terminal plugin controller, and there is a great little SDK here that you can go through and learn what parameters, what variables and expressions to give. You can learn how to test a plugin that you write yourself, but it is console based. And there was a point, was it you, Joe, who was trying to make like a plugin framework based in Golang that was like for CPM plugins or something like that?
Yeah, so I was kind of thinking that in my head, like it could do a pretty cool little thing, like you're saying, where people could just provide some frameworks. But again, it after speaking a little bit with some of our very smart development guys, I was told that it probably would not be successful, so I kind of gave up on that. So yeah, I kind of stopped on that path.
I tried to as well. Here's my failed attempt at doing it.
You're just getting started there, yeah.
So I was going to do it on Twitch, on like Twitch live streams and stuff like that. And I kind of started to do it, and then I was looking at the documentation, like I linked it here, and kind of wrote down some notes on how I wanted it to happen, and then just kind of threw in the towel and started focusing on Cyber CLI instead, which, by the way, apparently people don't know about. And I thought I had evangelized it. Like 90% of the questions, the automation questions and general questions that I get, that I see in the subreddit for CyberArk, are answered through the Cyber CLI. Like somebody, I think the other day was like, I want to, what are the least privileges I should put on safe permissions for users on a safe? I don't want to give them too many permissions and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my God, you don't even know the Cyber CLI is out there, you know, doing, and you can go and see, oh, look, all right, there's an add member role with role permissions. And so you can use the Cyber CLI, just choose your role, and it'll automatically permission a safe with the permissions based on what the blueprint says.
So Joe, did you know that in the new version 12.6 that you'll be able to choose a role when you add a member to a safe graphically?
Well, I would like to think that they stole that idea from me.
They did. Yeah, they did. So they actually looked at your repo and said, that's an amazing idea.
Absolutely.
I talked to them. And
hey, what if this is what needs to happen to get them to do cool and easy things for the community, then so be it. I will keep doing it, man. Because I mean,
yeah. So in the future, if you're not doing it the cool way with the API, you will be able to, whenever you select add members. To
that in Privilege Cloud, I think.
You probably did. I think it might have been available in the newest 12.5 version of Privilege Cloud, but in the self-hosted release for 12.6, you have the capability of selecting. Now, out of the box, they added a couple of specific roles. You might be able to show it right here if you're in the Privileged Cloud environment.
My Privileged Cloud tenant for a new product that'll be announced at Impact that I'm not.
Yeah, so if you select one of those saves and go to members.
Yeah, so we can go to members and then
add members. So this is a sneak peek for folks, like what it's going to look like, right? So if you just type something that a group that you know will exist.
Let's see if Jody exists in here. Jody Hunt.
And select him.
And then we can set permissions. Whoops.
Yep. And now you see right at the top, you have a couple of cool options, right? So
only
connect only, that only gives you the ability to use PSM, basically. You can't even retrieve it, right? Read only. Approver gives you some workflow stuff and gives you the ability to view safe members. Account manager allows you to add accounts. I don't know if it allows you to add users.
I always give myself full because
why not, right? So I think that's a pretty cool feature that
and you can
been wanting. It's also
I really like because it's missing Safe Manager. Safe Manager is one that I like.
Think Accounts Manager is similar to Safe Manager, but they have the access capability, which is Safe Manager technically doesn't have the access capability, right?
Oh, well, Safe Manager would be set on the user account itself, not on the safe. That's why there's a Safe Manager here. So you would basically be a safe. So Safe Manager, there's new user provisioning in Priv Cloud, which I love too. Since we're here, I'll show it. Like I don't need PrivateArk Client anymore to create users. I have a new user provisioning interface inside of the PVWA, and I can create a CyberArk user, select Safe Manager, right? And it already has a role defined for them to be able to add saves, add and update users and things like that. Help desk.
That's available in 12.6 as well.
Yeah, this is all new, just went GA version 12.6 stuff. I happen to be doing it in Privileged Cloud, so it's all SaaS based, but
did it go GA yet, Joe? I thought it was. Was it announced? Sorry, I missed the announcement.
Maybe it was an internal announcement.
Maybe internal GA.
Yeah, it'll be GA in like 2 weeks usually after that. So maybe look, like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, don't take what we say to heart, and we can be wrong too. So I'm probably wrong, but anyways, it's coming, right? You're getting a little sneak preview, I guess. Nothing's going to change here. So cool stuff there.
Yeah, one of the other things I like is from that same user menu. If you hit cancel here, Joe, do you see? I'm gonna see if you see something.
I get groups as well.
Oh yeah, so you can see status, right? So if you select like one of those users and hit the little ellipse,
let's pick on Jody. We've been picking.
Yeah, let's always pick on Jody. If you hit the little ellipse at the top right, does it let you deactivate them?
Yeah, you can disable.
Oh yeah, that's what I really like.
So if I disable him, I don't want to do that. I assume that I can also enable him now through the.
You get to activate, yeah, and you would get a nice little red icon underneath status. It's like a little pause button.
Nice.
It shows that he's deactivated or disabled or suspended, depending on what happened. One of my users is perpetually suspended, and I just don't know why, but it is.
Well, it may be time to rebuild your Vault environment then, Joe. But yeah, so this is cool because I know one of the biggest issues that I've had when I've been on POCs that involve Privileged Cloud is PrivateArk access. Like we need to do something for the Vault Conjure synchronizer. I need to create a user for the synchronizer, and I can't get PrivateArk access because Privileged Cloud, there's no PrivateArk access for the customers when they're dealing with a tenant like that. And so it's nice to see that we're starting to peel away from that fat client, that thick client, right? And starting to do things inside of a single pane of glass, that being the PVWA here. So that's cool. We've got a couple other questions that I do want to hit here. We got, we'll move on. Do you guys know of any, now, I don't want to spend too much time on this because I kind of have a feeling the answer isn't going to be one that they want. But support for AD bridging in general, I don't think that we have our old AD bridging method anymore, do we? Or do we still have that? I don't think we do. Is there any? Have you guys heard any rumblings about possibly bringing it back in another form? I haven't. I don't know if you guys have. I think I'm just going to move on. We're gonna say. To be determined on that. We'll give them the good old product management answer of maybe one day, right? We'll see.
Yeah, so I know that the AD bridging stuff in Privilege Cloud was kind of deprecated
Yeah.
for PSMP.
Yeah.
For on-prem or self-hosted, I'm not sure if we left it or if it's still available or not. I'd have to go and get the newest version and do the install and see if that capability still exists for me to enable.
Cool. All right. Yanni's got another question here. I'm just trying to go in order so we can wrap up here near the top of the hour. Is there any ETA to go to the next SLA benchmark for Privilege Cloud? I don't do much with Privilege Cloud to really be able to. I know we just announced an SLA for it, right? And it just recently.
I think that you might be thinking about identity.
Yeah, I think that was identity that we just released.
Okay. I think we're kind of bound to who hosts these services, which is AWS. So there's an AWS specific SLA to take into account. And then we have to kind of go based off of that and then really reduce a couple percentage points for our own uptime of our product, right? There may be times where the product might not be available, but the AWS cloud is. And I think that is really above my pay grade of being able to determine what that equates to. But I can tell you there's probably a zero possible chance of it aligning with what AWS provides from an availability SLA.
So one thing I know is Yanni, if you're super curious, you can actually get the real uptime numbers from CyberArk. I don't know if I can announce them on this
wouldn't
overall call. Those numbers we capture every year and we provide them to all of the analysts. So like Gartner, Forrester, Cupping, Cole. It's part of our questionnaire that they give us. I know that the numbers are better than what we advertise, but I couldn't give you the exact numbers. I'm trying to check to see on the back end, like if we have any kind of plans or what metrics how long do we need to be at a certain level before we announce like this is our new baseline or our new level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you need them, Yanni, you can definitely reach out and to me or to someone directly, and we'll figure out the right person. And once we get some sort of approval, I could let you know.
Yeah, Yanni's got the hookups, man. He knows how to reach out to us and get a hold of us to get that stuff. We'll help you out, man. If that's something that you need to provide to your customers. Here's a good one from YouTube. Usage accounts onboarding with REST is not available. See ya, Mike. As on today. So basically the question is usage accounts onboarding with REST. And a usage account would be like your service usages, your Windows services, and all of that. That is actually, it's not, I'm doing air quotes here. It's not like we don't shout it from the treetops that it's available, but it is available in the API. And the way that you do that, if we are to go back to the REST API documentation and take a look at that, it's kind of weird where it is. So you're going to go under accounts and then to the discovered accounts section here. And there is add discovered accounts.
Hey, Joe, can you share it out?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not even sharing it out. Geez. Well, at least it took till towards the end of the office hours for that to finally happen. So you can do link an account here. So linked accounts, that's for your dependencies. The linked accounts is for reconcile, log on, all of those types of accounts. And then you have just regular adding discovered accounts. This also includes dependencies as well. So even though it says discovered dependency here, it does work for any account that is pre-existing. That master account, as it's called, needs to pre-exist, and then you can use this API endpoint in order to onboard a quote unquote discovered dependency. So it treats it basically like, hey, you have some other processes that's working outside of CyberArk that discovered it, and now you want to go ahead and assign it to a master account. This is the API endpoint that you would use, even though it kind of reads like it's only for discovered accounts. It is confirmed by the community that it works in general.
So Joe,
that account exists.
A question there. So if an account has not been previously onboarded. So a brand new account shows up in pending accounts and it has dependencies, because I think that's where.
Yeah. So that's really where this started from, was from the idea that we want to discover an account and then maybe we onboard dependencies after the fact. It was always explained to me from PM that it only would ever work on discovered accounts, but the community tested it against accounts that are already onboarded that were not coming through the pending accounts and the accounts discovery method, and it worked. So I'm going to take that at face value. And
so Joe, that was changed, I think, in version 11.5.
Is that what it is? So this is this old 10.8 way of doing things. It probably was just for discovered accounts. And then,
so in the past, when we first released the accounts discovery and usage association, the only way that you could get like a new dependency to automatically add to an account was if you initially onboarded it through accounts discovery.
And that's how it was initially told to me. And so I just was like, whatever. Well, then,
so they changed it, I think, in 11.5.
Oh, perfect. They never announced that change. So
it's probably in the README, deep down in that small text somewhere.
Yeah, it's not documented in our API documentation. So I think that when I update this to version 12.6, understanding that information, I will move it out of discovered accounts and I'll get it out here and a little bit more exposed with the other basic account actions and things that take place. So we'll have add account and then add account dependency. Maybe I'll call it that or something like that. So look for that to be available a little bit more clearly in the v12.6 update of the CyberArk Postman collection for our REST APIs. But for now, you can just use it. It's this post request here, add discovered accounts, and you can go ahead and use that as it stands today. So answered question. Let's see. Do we have anything else? Yeah. So how about not using discovery? Yeah. Don't worry about that. It says discovery. It works without using discovery. So you should be good. And so even though I know you may feel a little defeated here, yeah, we're talking without discovery here, just to confirm. So anyways, it is 5 minutes past the top of the hour. I am parched. I'm ready to have some water here and relax. Joe, thanks for sticking it out for an extra 5 minutes here.
Appreciate it.
And I definitely had fun. We'll have to do this again sometime. I think next time, though, I'm going to invite someone with CyberArk identity background. I want to see the shared services stuff that we're doing, because I think that that's going to be a little hump for everyone to try to understand, out there in the world, how that works. Because I know I just was introduced to it and it's like really weird jumping between the services and stuff. So I think that getting questions answered regarding that, getting out ahead of that would be cool. And then maybe somebody with privileged cloud experience. We got some good privileged cloud questions today and stuff. And I think that that hasn't been it hasn't been represented here too much. So maybe we'll do that for the next office hours. But otherwise, Joe, thanks for hanging out today, man, with me and sticking through and even running over. I know other people had to jump for customers. So thanks to Mike Bykat, solutions architect, and his DPA information. Thanks to Andrew Harris and all his awesome questions. We didn't get any contra questions today, so I'll call that a win, right? I guess everybody understands it. I'm doing my job here or something. But yeah, anything you want to close out with, Joe? Anything you got going on? Any projects out there that you want to let people know about? I saw you're on Twitter now. So.
Oh yeah, no, nothing huge. I think I've been on the stalemate with all my my projects for fun. They keep slamming me with work, so nothing big right now. But yeah, if you guys aren't going to Impact, definitely go look for Joe Garcia's big head. You said you're doing a big head cutout, right?
I am, yeah. I ordered a microphone, like an interview microphone, and a gimbal. Perfect. I'm going to be recording and interviewing people and stuff.
Are you going to live stream it, Joe?
So I thought about live streaming it, but I've been in trouble enough with legal. Let's just leave it at I don't want to. So I'll be recording for YouTube. I will not be live streaming. I wanted to live stream my booth at the Discovery Center at least. But then they were like, there's going to be people internationally there. Like, you're going to have them sign releases and stuff like that. And I'm like, whatever, I'll just record for YouTube and have fun with it. If you don't want to be on video, I won't put you on video. If you do, then you can. But on a live stream, there's not much you can do about it, right? I can't blur faces in live, in a live stream or something like that. So,
yeah. Well, I hope you guys have a blast. Are you going to do the next office hours probably after or before Impact?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe we could do one there. I mean, an office hours there would be cool. I'll have the setup to do it.
Yeah, and you may have a lot more freedom in terms of announcing
Maybe
things.
I'll put a poll out there. Maybe I'll put a poll out there and see what people on LinkedIn think. So if you follow me on LinkedIn and just happen to be watching on YouTube or Twitch or anything like that, I'll put a poll out there and we'll see. Maybe I'll do one at Impact, do an office hours at Impact. I don't know where. I'd have to scout it out and stuff like that and figure it out on the fly. But maybe we'll do that, or we'll do one post Impact. I think that just right after Impact would probably be better, if not at Impact on like one of the final days. If I have time, I got to look at my schedule too, because I got a lot to do with the Discovery Center. I've got training sessions. Oh yeah, training sessions. Sign up for the training session on Secrets Everywhere. I'm going to be doing live coding and stuff. I'm not even going to do a training. They want to see my slides. I'm like, I don't have any slides. I'm just going to live code and do what people want. So we'll make it like a fun in-person office hours there. Maybe I can live stream that. Who knows? Anyways, with that, thank you everyone for hanging out and asking your questions, getting your questions answered. And until next time, stay secure. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you. See ya.